This is Wealth Curve Talk. Welcome you to a new episode. Today, I'm going to interview Edward Bao Jr., BAO. Ed is a senior wealth advisor at Smallwood Wealth Management, and he is a motocross rider. Welcome, Ed.
Good morning.
What the hell is a motocross rider?
Good question. The sport of motocross basically started in the United States back in the 70s, and the concept is that you ride a motorcycle over a dirt track, and there's certain obstacles in the track that you have to navigate, such as jumps, different types of bumps, obviously turns. Then the conditions can vary also from dry to muddy, so a lot of variables, a lot of things happening that you have to navigate. And so
basically it's the guys on the motorcycles that fly through the air over the big dirt jumps and land on the other side.
That's correct.
Okay.
There's a lot of jumping involved. That's the people that find that enjoyable.
So this is an extreme sport.
Yeah, it's considered an extreme sport. Yep.
Did you disclose it on your disability application? Just kidding. But what we want to do today is to kind of, as Ed does this event every year, and we'll talk about the event, he realized there's a lot of correlations to riding, let's say, safely in a motocross race. And when we say safely, that means enter the race, make all the jumps, finish the race on two wheels, and be able to go back again.
Yes.
That's the safe outcome.
Exactly.
Okay? Which is kind of like retirement, right? If we retire safely, that means we want to have our money last for our entire life and not run out of money before the end of the race.
That's correct.
All right, so
we want to have a good outcome during the whole event. Also, we want to
place high, finish.
Yeah, I want to fulfill, enjoy my retirement as much as possible. I want to have as good outcome in the race as possible. So, and things will happen during that time frame, but hopefully it all gets handled well.
So, as he was prepping for this, getting ready 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, pretty much every single weekend, what were you doing?
Well, as John knows me, I'm a little bit of a type A. So I started prepping. Well, let me back up. This usually happens in the beginning of March because it coincides with Bike Week down in Daytona Beach. So that's where you'll see those Harley guys and all the leather and stuff. That's not me.
But Bike Week not only does it have the Harley guys, but it has the motocross race going on at the same time.
Actually, there's a pro event that happens inside of Daytona International Speedway on Saturday night, which Saturday is the launch of the week. And then there's all sorts of events during that week. There's road racing and some other off-road events. Plus there's events for we'll call it the Harley guys, that they go do, poker runs and stuff during the day. But so to get prepared for this, I don't like to leave a lot of things to chance. I like to be prepared. I'm a pretty detail-oriented guy. So I was bringing 2 motorcycles with me, and I was starting to prep those motorcycles basically starting January 1st. And so I prepped one for the month of January, and I prepped another one for February.
What does prep mean?
Prepping means what I did was I basically took the motorcycles apart down to the frame and rebuilt them.
Why would you do that?
It's a good question. In the course of doing all this, there's obviously a lot of moving parts on the motorcycle. There's a lot of pivot points and bearings and such. So you need to maintain the motorcycle.
Make sure they're clean.
Clean, greased, everything's tightened properly.
No sand in anywhere.
Anywhere. Make sure tolerances are correct. And if anything needs to replace, you replace it. So
full couple months in advance, if I need to get a part, I'm replacing it now.
I'm replacing it now. I don't want to have to deal with it when I'm down in Florida.
Are the bikes pretty much the same manufacturer, the same bike?
Actually, no. They're actually 2 different manufacturers. One is a Kawasaki and one's a Yamaha. The one that I normally ride is the Kawasaki. Has a bigger engine than the Yamaha. The Yamaha tends to be what my 2 young boys of we'll call it 20 and 22 ride. It's a bike I used to ride when I was younger. I just thought I'd bring it with me and just play around with it at the practice tracks, but not use it in the race. It's not my race vehicle. So, but in anticipation that they ride that bike during the year, it was a good time for me to tear that bike down, make sure it's prepped correctly, it's ready for me to ride down in Florida, plus the boys, it's ready for my boys.
So you take the Kawasaki down to the frame and you build it back up. Mm-hmm. Then what are you doing for parts? Do you have extra parts?
I do. So initially I rebuild the motorcycle, and I'll put new tires on it and such.
And you have a backup pair of tires?
I have another set of tires because if I ride the bike during the week, I want really fresh tires for the race on the weekend, just to be prepared. I don't want to leave anything to chance. But anything from bringing an extra set of handlebars, the grips that go on the handlebars, the levers that control the brake and the clutch on the handlebars, those tend to get damaged. If you fall over in a turn or anything, not a severe crash or anything like that, but when you fall over, those ends of the bars tend to take a lot of damage. I did bring some other ancillary parts just to have them, or if I changed something to a modified part on the bike, I brought the original with me in case I had to go back to it because the modified part wasn't working correctly while I was down there.
What would be a modified part?
I actually changed the front of the motorcycle that holds the suspension and the handlebars, also controls, this gets a little bit into geometry of how the bike handles, but the angle of those forks in the front tire can be changed so that the bike can actually turn a little sharper. Okay. Other things happen behind that, but I won't get into that. But I put those on and made me relocate some other parts on the bike to make this part work. And in case the relocation of the parts wasn't going to work out or anything, or I just didn't like the new setup, I brought the original clamps with me, and it would probably take me about an hour to swap out the clamps and everything.
So basically, you get the bike down to Daytona, and when you start testing it on the track, if you don't like it, you can basically rebuild the entire bike on site.
I can exactly
without having to go to a supplier, without having to go to anything. You got backup and redundancy.
I have backup redundancies. I bring specialized gas with me, so I don't have to go searching for it down in Florida. I have obviously the tires. I have multiple sets of equipment, riding equipment. I have all the tools necessary for me to rebuild that motorcycle pretty much without having to worry about anything.
So the bike's perfect. Now, when you race, you're shrouded in basically armor. Talk about that.
Pretty much. So there's, from a pants and a jersey perspective, they're motocross specific. They're more of like a nylon type thing. It's just so if you fall, they don't just tear on you. It's made for lightweight and breathability. That isn't the sophisticated part. The boots that we wear, the helmet, there are chest protectors that are involved. And one of the big advancements of the sport is a neck brace. So the neck brace, what it does is reduce the amount of motion of the neck. If I happen to fall and I hit my head cannot rotate back so far that it actually will potentially cause a severe injury to the spine. Same thing from the front, same thing side to side. So it stops the helmet. The helmet is an integral part of this. The helmet will start tilting and it actually hits this neck brace and it stops that rotational mass from going too far and stretching the neck and obviously causing some bad spinal injuries. That was never the case before about 10 years ago.
So spinal injuries were a lot higher during that time frame.
I would have to assume, and it's funny because some of this technology came out and people started using it, and people are now getting away from it because they feel that the brace is breaking collarbones. And I'm like, my thought process on that is, who cares?
Neck or collarbone.
Exactly. and this is how sometimes you sit there and talk to some of these,
And that's really interesting, and I didn't want to jump yet into the correlation of financial planning, right. But it's like, I'm not going to do this because it's going to potentially cause a problem. Which problem was worse, a broken neck or a collarbone? I'll take the collarbone all day long.
All day.
And it's crazy. So, all right, so you, not only do you bought new equipment to wear, yep. You have your old equipment for backup and redundancy.
Sure.
Now, let's talk about the vehicle in which you're going to get to Daytona. So we're talking about prep, right? Yeah. We're not just, it's the bike. So the bike is great, right? Now you've got your armor that,
all motocross related is basically set to go, and I'm prepared in that respect.
Now you got to put this stuff in a vehicle and get yourself down to Daytona.
Right. So I currently own a Ford pickup truck that is basically a year old, so we know we have a reliable vehicle to drive down there in.
Relatively efficient also.
Yeah.
until with a trailer on it.
Until I put a trailer on it, so I bring an enclosed trailer with me. And, my intentions are to start driving down the I-95 corridor and stop somewhere and continue my trip the next morning, so I don't have to do it all in one day. So I need to bring an enclosed trailer. I put everything I possibly can in the trailer. This is where the redundancy in the Type A starts clicking in. The bikes are locked within the trailer doors are locked. The trailer hitch is locked to the truck. The hitch itself is locked in the receiver to my truck, and I put a chain on the frame to the trailer.
So the only way to really get your stuff is to steal the truck and drive away with it, and then basically take everything out of it later.
Pretty much, or you need a torch to start cutting things off on that truck. So I want to make it as hard as possible for anybody to get anything.
So all right, now. We've got the bikes, we've got the gear to wear, we've got the vehicle. Let's talk about the body.
Oh.
When did you start prepping your body to get in shape for this thing? Because you just can't go out and do this without being in shape.
Right. And obviously the best exercise is actually being on the motorcycle and doing the activity. Unfortunately, it's wintertime around here and it's really hard to be on the bike. So that's one reason I go down a week early and try to put in 3 or 4 practice days to basically shake off the rust and get ready for the weekend. And again, it's just so I don't want to get hurt per se. I don't want to just get down there.
But you need to get warmed up.
I need to, you need to get
used to the track because you're going to need to make modifications to the bike based upon the track conditions, which are changing daily, probably as people ride.
And your body, listen, I'm not as young as I used to be, so it takes me. You need to be acclimated to the whole thing. But, as John knows, I try to stay in pretty good shape all year round. I go to a gym at least 3 days a week, pretty intense workout. On weekends, if I'm out on the bike, there's some more working out. Maybe I'm doing some hiking. I'm doing some mountain biking in between. So I do that. I've been doing that for, every year the last 2 years I've been steadily working out in that regimen.
But this year you lost a lot more weight than you normally have.
Correct. I've always targeted that I wanted to lose some weight because as we get older, maybe some of us have put on some weight.
I found your weight.
Yeah. So I was actually successful this year. I tried modifying my diet and got really good results. So
you lost about 20 pounds, right?
Yeah, it's north of 20 pounds. And that was kind of my target.
Which I found. But in all seriousness,
I hit my target. I basically started, again, kind of the same time I started prepping the bikes. I redid my diet, and I targeted the trip as my target goal. And I was about 4 days before I left I hit my target number, and I was very happy with that.
So from a prep standpoint, you get in the car, you start driving to Daytona, you're in the best shape you've been in a long time. You know the bike is clean. You know the bike is prepped. You know you have the right equipment. You have backups and redundancies. Your pickup truck is in good shape. It's not going anywhere off that thing.
Leaving nothing to chance.
So now you get in the vehicle and you start on this track. Correlate this to the financial planning process, like just this setup that you are doing, and why, as you're driving for 24 hours down to Florida or whatever it took you, because it's slow with a trailer on the back,
right,
and you're burning a ton of gas, right? So we had this conversation, which was you started to correlate what's going on to the financial planning process.
Right.
Spend a couple moments on that.
Well, I started. It was a 16-hour trip. I ended up not stopping overnight because I started at 5:30 in the morning, so I was able to arrive at my destination at 9. So I just kept going, and it leaves you
no traffic, nothing. You really
I hit maybe 10 minutes of traffic. I mean, even stopping 4 times for gas, I actually made pretty good.
4 times for gas.
Yeah, and you can't go. And I'm not going.
Did you expect to stop 4 times?
Well, I drove this truck down last year, and I kind of remembered that it was 3 or 4 times for gas.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah. So, and I was like, So, and then when I started doing the trip and started looking at the numbers and in the computer of the truck, I said, oh, yeah, 3 or 4 times. So, it leaves you a lot of time for thinking in the truck, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love to do my karaoke singing, but after a while, I think I got tired of my own singing. So,
so take the motorcycle prep, and compare the motorcycle prep to the prep of a financial strategy.
Well,
what's like step one, the goal of taking a bike apart?
Well,
why would you do that?
Well, step one is you take, I look at the bike and I'm going to take the bike apart because I have to understand what is going on with the motorcycle at that moment.
So like a financial plan, you got to take the pieces out and understand what they're doing. Every piece of the financial plan. I have to know. Not just the carburetor on the bike, but everything. You don't have a carburetor anymore, right? You fuel injection. I'm dating myself. But 2-stroke, 4-stroke.
It's not like if I just take the tire off the motorcycle, then what am I really left with? Okay, am I changing the tire? Am I checking the spokes? I'm pretty isolated to that one component of the motorcycle. I really need to understand, take it all apart and start dissecting piece by piece and then understanding where there's weaknesses. In those pieces. And then
there's a wear mark here.
Right. And is that
it's too old, I don't trust it.
Right. And if let's say the chain is wearing into something on the bike, is that due to the sprocket on the rear tire, which is not even near the area that's wearing out?
Slightly out of alignment or something.
Out of alignment, too loose, too old, getting stretched. So the same thing happens in the financial plan. I may have a problem here, but is it caused by another decision that I'm making somewhere else in my plan?
So we're looking at a wear on the bike up where somewhere else, but the cause is not there. The cause is from another event going on, which is very frequent in a financial strategy.
Absolutely.
Equal and opposite reactions.
Absolutely. So,
but the key to the prep of taking everything off was understanding what you have.
Absolutely, and that's what.
Then you need to know what you've got to get.
Right, I have to look.
And I say that in a weird way, but you can't. You couldn't have gone into the store and said, "I'll take 6 of these, 11 of these, and 12 of these," without really knowing what you had first. You had to make an assessment of the current strategy.
Absolutely. I mean, I can make, just like you and I, when we look at a plan, we kind of know there's kind of standard things that kind of common to a lot of problems in the same plan, in everybody's plan, but everybody has unique and specific situations, and there's those certain things that we end up pulling out, and that's the same thing. Yeah, I know I'm going to put tires on the motorcycle, but I start digging in and going, oh my God, there's a part that I didn't realize was wearing out, and that's never worn out before, or it shouldn't have worn out at this point. So I need to go order that specific part. So I do need to make an assessment of the whole thing.
Right, and if you, let's say I'm riding the same bike, I weigh 200 and way too much pounds. You weigh 160 pounds? I'm like 60 pounds. I'm 6'2".
About 167 right now.
Right. So can I get on your bike and ride?
No.
Effectively?
Not if you to be the most efficient outcome that you possibly would want on the motorcycle. The springs would have to be changed because they're not. The suspension is not going to be right for you. Yeah, you'll be able to go out and ride it, but will you be able to optimize it? Absolutely not.
Right. We wouldn't. I mean, It might be good, but
it'd be all right.
It might be all right, but it's not optimized for me.
At some point, when you want to go a certain speed and at a certain level, that bike will not cooperate with you.
So your prep of I could ride that bike, but it would need to be optimized for my height, my weight, the way I'm going to ride it, how aggressive.
You're taller than me. You may want different handlebars.
My air pressure is going to be different in my tires. Like every little nuance of the plan, but it's all the same freaking parts.
Right.
They're just adapted in a different manner.
There's adjustments made along the process.
Right. So, all right. So this is what I really like is we assess the current situation. We take it down to the bare bones, understand what the understand what we need, go out
what
and
we
get
have. Well, what we have.
what we have.
And
now
then,
we know what we have. Now we know what we're lacking.
Right, and what are we going to need?
And why do we need it? So we go out and we get what we need, and then we make the adjustments to it. And then, so that's kind of the engine that's driving this thing. Like, you're not going to go out and compete with a YZ80, okay, which is from the 80s, right? Does that exist anymore?
There were 85s.
Okay,
Yes.
so that we're in this situation where, you know, you're making this, you're adapting the bike to where you want to be, and that bike is, you're now putting the bike back. Now that's the engine. That's going to make you go fast. That bike is optimized for your piece. Now you go to the protection component, and which is the rider needs to be fully buffered from all the crap that's going to happen.
Right. So, and that goes back to
the neck braces.
Well, you start, you know, first I have to prep myself, you know, from, you know, a physically fit standpoint. And so the dieting and the exercise, that's why I do it.
Should you really go on this race?
do I really?
Are you really in good enough health?
Right. Do I want to go down there and have a heart attack doing this?
Right, as you land on the first jump.
Like I, you know, since I've been doing it a long time and I understand the risks involved, I don't want to leave a lot to chance. So I just want to be in the best shape possible for myself, right? And that correlates into hopefully other things in my life besides motocross. It's going to be a long, fruitful life.
Right, but you're now putting on all this protection. You're putting on the new boots, and you're putting on chest protectors and neck protectors and helmets and gloves.
The next layer is correct, is putting on, you know, I basically had an aha moment last year talking to a friend of mine who actually got hurt. We were together at the track, and he got hurt one day. And we started talking when he came back after recovering. And, I'm worried about lost opportunity cost and money going out the door. But then I started thinking to myself, I'm not spending my money wisely because I maybe wasn't buying as high-end boot as maybe I should have. I was buying a less expensive boot, and I'm like, well, that one doesn't really protect as much. And I was like, where do I want to put my money when I'm spending on this sport?
Right. If you fall, you want to make sure that you don't,
Absolutely.
1, get killed, 2, you don't have a broken neck, 3, that your ankles and your shins and your knees and everything are being protected as well as
Do I want
they
the
can.
cheapest helmet? Absolutely not. I want the helmet with the most protection and, concussion protocol stuff and, all that. So I kind of rethought.
So the Toys R Us stuff's not going to work.
No, it's like they used to say, but my friends used to work in some of the motorcycle stores, and they'd get people coming in, they buy these very fancy street bikes, and how fast those things go.
Oh yeah.
And you're facing cars and pavement, and they are buying $80 helmets versus the $500 helmet.
Spending a ton of money on a bike, the greatest bike ever.
What's your head worth? Is it $80 or $500? So it's the same.
So investing in the protection
is absolutely worth it.
Is really, really important part of the plan. Now, in the race, which race did you fall in? Was it the first race, third race, fourth race?
So, no, it wasn't even. I was at the race. So the end result of this was that I ended up falling.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. And
shows up here with crutches and limping and moving pretty slow. And I think his head's a little rattled. I'm not sure.
The week went fine. We did a lot of riding and everything was fine. Just we got to the race and they give us a couple practice sessions before the actual racing starts, which makes sense. You got to get acclimated to that course and stuff. So in my second practice session, 3 laps into it, something happened. I came over a jump, and it ended up being a severe landing, and it kind of jerked both my wrists, and I got out of balance on the bike, and I ended up falling because it threw me completely off, and the bike kind of took off on me. And it was kind of a silly crash in itself, but
in a practice run.
It's a practice.
Which you're riding hard.
Yeah,
but not as hard as you normally would in a race.
Even in the race, I'll be honest with you. At this stage of my life, we're out. The race is not about to go out there and kill everybody. And
it's finish.
It was just okay. It was a culmination of the week. It's a really cool event, and we're just there to have fun. Most of the guys are all in the same mindset because we're in the older classes. So I'm just doing it to do it and have fun, and we're there with friends, and if I finish last, great. If I finish first, great. It really doesn't.
So you fall in the practice run.
Yep.
The bike gets away from you. The bike is okay, or is the bike?
No, bike got a little bit damaged. The handlebars got bent. The grips got ripped on that side. The lever got bent. But besides that, for the most part,
of which if you could rebuild that whole bike because you had all the parts there.
Absolutely, I could
in a heartbeat.
I could have that fixed in 10, 15 minutes.
Okay,
so.
But the body was a little stressed.
Yes, rattled my head a little bit. I landed on both feet, but more on the right foot, which ended up causing a lot of trauma to the bottom of my foot. My left knee got a little tweaked, which I have a bad knee from this anyway, so it doesn't take much for that, but that's not, But it was bothering me. My wrist kind of bothered me. All my joints kind of got banged up.
Got jarred pretty hard.
Yeah, it was kind of odd. Like, you don't normally have all these, maybe the foot gets hurt, but not the, So I had all these things going on, obviously. And because of that, I, obviously did not race. I just put the bike away, and I said, okay, our day's done.
So you're hurt. You have all this new equipment. You think it actually protected you a little more than your old equipment would have? Absolutely.
I think so because, after getting the foot was probably the biggest dilemma that I had or issue. And, got it checked out by the doctor when I came back and everything. And the latest report was there's no major damage. There's no fractures. It's just a big contusion on the bottom of the foot, which could take time. But
so now you're not going to go into the normal races. Do you stay or do you come home?
Well, I stayed for the rest of the day and,
right.
Felt like, a good night's rest was probably in order.
Smart idea.
Right. And, my wife said, do you want me to send one, put my oldest boy on a plane to help me drive back? I'm like, no, it's not a problem. I could drive easily with that, my situation. So I got up the next morning and drove home.
And did you encounter a nor'easter on the ride home?
That was the...
which was not expected to have a nor'easter.
I think it was March 12th. That was that Monday, and we were getting it Tuesday morning. So there we go. Plans were, okay, I'll stop, getting close to Washington and call it a day of driving. I didn't want to push too hard either. But then with the nor'easter basically hitting that area, I said, well, if I can get home, I'll go keep driving.
With a wind tire on the ride up?
Winds were a little, actually I hit the snow. I hit snow in northern North Carolina and southern Virginia.
So you had to go slower?
I had to go slower, which then, of course, was changing my timetable. And
did you use more gas?
No, probably about the same amount of gas. Probably stressed out a little bit more because now I'm driving a trailer.
White knuckled.
Had to be more concerned.
You can admit it.
No, actually, I think I was more worried about the other people. There were so many people driving off the road in the snowstorm down in North Carolina. I said, obviously, some of these folks don't know how to drive in this type of stuff. So I was more worried about them hitting me than me actually losing control of my vehicle.
Right. So you're worried about everybody else.
Yeah. So that's why I said I was a little bit more stressed.
So when we think about this, I want to bring this back to the financial plan.
Sure.
So the prep, understanding the current components, making sure everything is as good as it can be for the situation that you're getting into, making sure that the protection is as good as it can be, making sure that the body's as good as it can be, the vehicle that's going to get you down there, that's in good shape, your tires are well done, everything's right. So you got all this backup, you got all this redundancy. You go down, you don't have a great outcome because you didn't get a chance to race all the way through.
Right.
You make it back, you're in pain, but that's part of a financial strategy is that the prediction, the way we think it's going to happen, doesn't necessarily go the way we think it's going to plan, but you were able to adapt. You could have fixed the bike very quickly. You didn't feel like fixing yourself was the appropriate way to go and go back and race, which was a really smart decision.
Thank you.
Not to get back in the race.
and believe me, we have an Ironman mentality in this sport. It's kind of like football. You're like, oh, brush it off and keep going. But, obviously the stage. But the protection component, listen, I know doing this and I'm going to fall off at some point. There's just the probability happens. It's even the best riders in the world are going to fall off. And I'm pretty proficient at this, not just because I'm doing a long time. I got to a level that I was very proficient at it. So I understand the risks and what I'm doing.
You've been doing this since the early 80s, mid-80s.
Mid-70s.
Mid-70s
I started riding. and I started racing in 1980. So I have a deep understanding. It's not like I'm just picking this up 2 years ago.
Right.
So that I'd be more concerned about. But one of the things that correlates to the planning that we haven't talked about was, the bike is prepped. I get down to Florida and I have a week's worth of riding to do before the race. And I'm going to 4 different practice tracks.
Testing,
simulating,
simulating, not really simulating, you're actually doing, but you're testing to make sure that you and the equipment is going to perform the way you want it to be. So you're stress testing.
I'm stress testing and what happens is you get into these, every track is not exactly the same. There's different dirt components. There's different types of things going on. And I'm making adjustments as I'm going along. I'm constantly reevaluating.
Tweaking your air, your suspension, your fuel mix probably.
Everything. So that really is similar to, in a condensed version of what we do with the planning because, I have a base setting on the motorcycle that works really well, meaning the adjustments on the suspension and how the bike is going to handle, because that's ultimately probably the most important thing to me right now at this stage of my life is I want the bike to do what I think it's going to do when I'm put it into a situation. If it does something
different,
unexpectedly, like what happened in the race, I'm concerned, right? So I want that, but I have to be able to make an adjustment and modify when I need to, okay? And case in point, I was running a certain setting on the bike during the week, and I made a tweak to it before the race because I knew that track was going to be a little bit different than I had been riding all week, and I needed to adjust it for that case. So
interesting.
When we look at the plan isn't just to set it and forget it when we sit there. We look at the base plan to
gotta keep modifying and adjusting and adapting.
We understand the current situation, then we put in recommendations because we want the plan to be more efficient and want to get the best outcome for that time frame as possible. Well, things happen, things change, right? If it started raining at the race, that's a whole nother variable that I have to now be prepared for. Do I need a different set of tires? Do I have to change the way the goggles work because I need to be able to see during the race? So all these different things.
Swapping out components along the way and having backup and redundancy is
key.
To a long-lasting, successful motocross. Same as a financial plan.
And even specifically when we talk about the investment philosophy, because we focus on that a lot too, we created the portfolios and we have different components of the portfolio are meant to do different things. And they're there, some are there for a little bit of a protection component because we know the market's going to go down at some point. I'm going to hit the ground at some point.
Volatility will restore itself.
Right.
Yes.
And
you might get hurt along the way.
Right.
You might have a liquidity event where you need some, and I say not a good liquidity event, a negative liquidity event where you need capital.
So sometimes those components may not be, for the lack of a word, sexy what's going on with the current market. When the S&P is running, 20, 30%, and we're not getting 20, 30% from that exact portion of the portfolio, but it'll feel really good when the market's down 20 or 30%. And we have to remember that, right?
Right. You have to buffer and have backups and redundancies in defensive positions.
Just like when we were talking about the neck brace, and I said there's individuals not using them now, and these guys really need to use them. They're going much faster than I am. And to me, it's like, okay, because they're not as comfortable, it makes you feel, or maybe you're possibly going to break a collarbone. That makes some sense to me. Like, you have to
put it on and adapt to it. You have to adapt to it because broken neck, collarbone, I'm choosing the collarbone. If I could choose between two.
Right. It feels better when I'm riding without it because I get a little bit more movement out of my head. But who cares?
You can correlate that to so many things. Like guys skiing without helmets.
Right.
Extreme skiing.
The motorcycle guys on the street not wearing a helmet. Like, boy, that's a win or lose scenario.
Guys wearing shorts while they're riding a motorcycle on the street. Like road rash.
So, like the investment philosophy, I really started thinking about this in my drive home and how we do things. We're looking for the best outcome possible.
Right. And there are principles that you're following in the race that you need to follow in, such as savings rate, right? Which is kind of like, how much gas did you bring? Much more than I needed.
Right.
Much more.
Right.
Much more. You could have made money selling the extra gas because guys needed it, right? But that's the equivalent of savings rate, right?
I'd rather think about that. We always err to the side of being conservative whenever we talk about our planning with our clients. And that's okay. If I ended up with an extra 5 or 10 gallons of gas in cans in the trailer at the end of the weekend, I'm okay with that because I'm not running around Florida trying to find this specialized gas, and it's a pain in the neck, right?
Right. And probably price gouging down there because everybody knows that you need it at that time, right? When you need something, what am I willing to pay for it? Whatever.
But remember, this is about peace of mind, right? So that's a big correlation between the two. Is like
knowing you had it all there.
Right, but like I always talk about, I want you putting your head on the pillow at night and not worrying because your plan is going to work in most any situation if that works. So if I'm down there with half my garage in the trailer, literally, and all the redundancy I have, it's just because I want to feel comfortable and I don't want to have to worry.
The worst thing is sitting down there going, this is broken, X part is broken, and I know exactly where it is in the garage. Years and years ago, in the 70s, my family were on a trip on our family boat up the Hudson in the Champlain Canal. We hit rocks. The props and the shafts are bent. The spare shaft and the spare props are in the house in Wayne. We're in Vermont. Nice. So my uncle had to go get them and drive them up to us because in the 70s, like, how do you get in touch with people, right? And that was the last time that we didn't have backup props and shafts on a boat when we're doing a trip. Like, it was one of those things where you have to think about that, is that what's the role of the stuff that you have? What's it doing? Is it performing properly relative to what its role in the plan is? Like the neck brace, is it performing right? I haven't used it in 3 years. Great, good news. But I have it. It's that protection piece.
And
great, I haven't used my neck brace.
Right, and I'd rather have more of that than less of that, because when I all of a sudden in need of it and now I have to go find it or get it, what's the situation I'm in at that point?
Right.
And the first day we were down there, my friend and I were at the track, and a young kid came over. He was parked across away from us in his trailer, and he starts telling us about all the bike problems he's having, and he doesn't even know how he's going to get the bike to run at this point.
He didn't do anything like that.
Believe me, he was not prepared like me. And I was like, oh my God, like that's exactly what I don't want. It's the same thing in the plan, right? Like a lot of people wait till retirement to start talking about retirement
planning. I'm retiring in 3 months. Let me start planning. What?
Right. I mean,
how much thought have you given to this whole retirement thing?
That doesn't. You're right. I need to.
Kids go to college in September. Let me start doing a college plan.
Right. We need to. Having strategy. So 2 months before I go down, January 1st, I'm formulating my strategy on how this is all going to play out in my head, because I don't want to come up a week before March and go, is this how I'm going to do it? That's not a good plan. It's not a good strategy.
So to kind of sum this up, finish this up, the biggest takeaways that you want the listener to hear today about the correlation of motocross to financial planning is what?
It's really understanding your situation and gathering your data and understanding what's happening at that moment, and then formulating a plan going forward.
To improve upon what you have.
Improve upon what you have. And that process, it happens in the garage constantly. It should be happening in your plan. In
the garage.
In the garage. my office.
In the simulator. In the stress testing.
You have to do it.
And you have to know it now.
Absolutely, because things will change. Technology changes on the bikes. New things are coming out. Economic events are changing in our lives.
The variables are changing.
The variables are changing.
Good stuff, bad stuff.
Right. So, constantly having that evaluation and understanding that, you have to plan for it. If you really want the best outcome and the most efficient outcome, you need to have strategy and look at that, and the detail has to be looked at. I can get by not doing what I did. I probably could have just did a few things to the motorcycle, and it would have been fine for Florida. But would that have been the optimal setup?
No.
I have to say, my friend, who I go visit every year, my longtime friend from high school, he always pays me the biggest compliment. He goes, "I've never seen the preparation by anybody like you."
Right. You're a rare phenomenon. Everybody in your neighborhood basically says, if something's broken, Eddie will fix it. He has the parts. He can get it done. But people are moving out of the neighborhood regretting that they're not going to have you around the corner.
But it's a mindset, right? And you have to understand the problem. I learned this a long time ago from another friend who was an engineer, and he said, to truly fix something, you have to understand the problem. Correct. And too many of us go at a problem without truly understanding it.
They spend more time trying to solve a problem that they don't really understand what the true problem is.
And if you really
that's the key. That's a great point.
If you look at the problem and take time dissecting the problem, the solution comes so much easier.
It's simple.
Right.
But if you don't understand the problem, it's a waste of time.
So I want to try to deflect, rolling that back, because I want to be ready and prepared for when the problem arises, and I'm only there for 10 days. I do not want to be wasting time while I'm down there. The other thing I really wanted just to emphasize so we can wrap this up is that obviously I have a passion for motocross. It's just something.
And financial planning.
And financial planning. And one of the things I think
wealth management, whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. I think one of the people that are doing this for the right reasons in our industry pretty much come at this, and it's kind of cliche, but we really care about our clients and their outcomes. We want to help people.
Right.
And we know we have the tools and the skills to help people.
And how you help them is from the macro perspective as opposed to the micro.
Right.
And if we can correlate this back, the micro perspective would be, I'm in great shape. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get on my bike. I'm going to ride like mad.
I'm going to show up a day before and just go to the race.
Yeah.
Right?
And that may or may not work.
It may or may not work.
But the odds are against you. And
right.
when you go back to the macro and you go through all the prep and the redundancy and the equipment and the truck and the thing, if you were driving down there and somebody stole your trailer, who cares how prepped you were? It would have been gone. So all those little tiny factors in the macro, because those are possible outcomes that could have happened, is much more valuable in the plan. And that's the key that I see in this conversation.
And so, yeah, absolutely. And I saw the last similarity, and I didn't want to make the least, was the passion that we both have working with our clients. And really the passion is, I'm worried about their well-being. I'm worried about the outcome of their plan. And as much as we don't like to take that side personally, we really do, because I feel like we really care about how they end up.
Right, because you're looking at all those details. Most people just want to go, oh, here's my hammer, and let me solve all your problems.
Here's my investment portfolio, and that's all we care about.
Believe me,
that's easy. When we start worrying about
here's my miracle solution. Here's my miracle product.
No, I mean we get into a lot of detail with our clients, and that's because of the true caring nature, and that's passion. So I have this passion for 40 years of riding motocross. I have a passion for my financial plan because I really want to help people.
Right, and the analogy really comes down to is you bought the best gas possible to make that race happen. But if you didn't do all the prep and the bike was a crappy bike, the gas wouldn't have mattered.
No.
Didn't matter. No. Right?
No.
So
if I had old tubes and I got a flat tire, what does it matter about the gas?
Kind of like I did my 80-mile bike ride per day. I really wasn't ready for that. But
you need me.
Yeah, I needed you to prep me out. But the focus here, what I want people to understand is, if you like this conversation, you can go to smallwoodwealth.com. You can schedule a introductory call right on our website. It says schedule. It's a wealth curve conversation, which is identifying, in essence, the parts of your plan and understanding what that plan is and all those unique dynamics. If you want to listen to more of the podcast, you can go to Wealth Curve Talk on iTunes and hit subscribe. You can come to our website under Connect. You're going to see we have webinars going on a weekly basis. We have 2 different podcasts, Wealth Under Pressure and this Wealth Curve Talk. These are designed to give you big picture strategies and ideas that we think are relevant to your plan. So we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to getting your comments and your feedback. And we appreciate you listening, because this was a long one. So thank you for putting in the time.
I apologize.
No, don't apologize. This is what it's about, right? So talk to you soon. Thank you. Welcome to the end of the video. Smallwood Wealth Management is an investment advisor representative. The opinions expressed by Smallwood Wealth Management and guests on this show are their own. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented for this educational purposes only. Moreover, no listener should assume that any discussions or information presented serves as a receipt of or substitute for personalized advice from Smallwood Wealth Management or from any other investment professional and is not intended as an offer of solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Smallwood Wealth Management is not a law firm or an accounting firm, and no portion of this presentation should be interpreted as legal, accounting, or tax advice. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as a recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Thank you for listening.